All right, so today's video, we are attempting to make a half lap joint plant stand. So for a potted plant, I'm looking at maybe like a 6-inch base for the pot to sit on, and I'll pop a image up on the screen of what I'm talking about here. So what I've done already is I just kind of figured out the center. So these are 12-inch 1x2s. So I got to cut down to 12 inches per piece. And I think I'm going to need 4 legs, and then the cross member here. So what I did is I measured out the center and carried those measurements over to the sides. So now I'm going to find the halfway point. So this is 1x2, but it's, 3/4 of an inch or whatever. Let's see. Yeah, so it's just about 3/4 of an inch. So I only want to cut out half. So it's going to be like a half. They call it a half lap joint, right? So I'm gonna cut out half of this, through the bottom here, and then it should fit into the other half that way. This is the first time I'm ever trying this. I've watched a few videos, so I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing, but we're going to learn together. So I'm just going to record. I may or may not talk, but I'll put something on. Anyway, so I got this measured out. I got a marking tool, and I've already got it set for halfway up. So I'm just going to kind of mark that, dig it in. So if I flip this around and did it on the other side, if it's halfway, it's going to be in the exact same line, which it is. And then I'm just going to darken that line up with the pencil. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Mark it. Darken it up with the pencil. All right, then I want to just take out this. So I'm going to use the table saw. Yeah, you can do it on the table saw. You could probably, if you have a depth gauge on your miter saw, you could probably do that. Both of them are not really convenient at the moment, but you can also use a jigsaw or just a hand saw if you have some ways to stabilize the board, some clamps or a miter box or something. But I think I will try it with the miter saw because the table saw trips the breaker all the time. But we'll get these marked out. So I'm only going to get rid of half. And we're going to keep the top half, and keep the bottom half on that, and then they should sit together nice and flush. Should. But again, this is the first time I'm doing this, so follow along, I guess. I'm going to pause here. I think I need to get the table saw back up here. I'm going to try setting the depth gauge on the table saw, not table saw, the miter saw. I'm going to put the miter saw back up. I'm going to try to set the depth gauge so I don't go all the way through the wood, just halfway through. I know I just took this off the table, so I figured I would work in here on the level table instead of outside on the sawhorse table that is not level. But, and I've never used the depth gauge on this. Like I said, this is a new saw for me, and I've never owned a miter saw, so I believe the depth gauge is here. And if I take my wood, just kind of put it there, I gotta look at it from the other side. All right, so there's just like a turn knob over here. So I put the saw where I think it should be, and I turn that knob so now it won't go all the way down. And I'm going to use a piece of scrap wood. I don't know if I have anything similar to this. Yeah, this looks kind of close. Just want to do a test to make sure it doesn't go all the way through. Slide this down. Okay. Yeah, that should work. So it didn't go all the way through. And then you just have to take, you know, however many chops down it takes to get your piece cut out. So I want to cut this side. So put that here. Put this away in the bucket of water. Hold on, let me vacuum and everything all over the place. So I think in general what you want to do is make your first cut on this side, and then we'll move it over and do your first cut on your second cut over here, and then you'll just keep inching over to this way until you get most of that cut out. And then what we can do is we can come back with a chisel and just flatten it out and get whatever didn't get cut. And I do have extra pieces in case I mess this up. Again, I've never done this, so we get to do it together. I need my hearing protection and my mask. Actually, we'll just do hearing protection. It shouldn't be too much sawdust. I'm going to turn my light on. So just cast a shadow of the blade where it's going to cut. And I'm going to cut on this side of the line, the scrap side of the line, because you need about 1/8 of an inch for the saw blade. So I'm going to put that there. And I don't have a little thing. I'm going to hold this down. We're on the right track. It's just not going down far enough. So I'm going to adjust the depth gauge. So I think I got it in the right spot. Maybe a little bit more. Actually, go a little bit more. So I'm just taking multiple passes, a little bit at a time, and it's pretty much right at the line. So I may try to adjust it a little bit more, and then we'll just clean it up with a chisel. So I'll get a chisel and we'll chisel this off, and then we'll do the same thing on the other ones. I've used the one recently. Chisel. Chisel. This isn't going to be the best chisel work. It doesn't feel very sharp, that's for sure. I don't think, it's not really a wood chisel, which I don't have. So, let me think of something here. All right, I found this little tiny one in the wood carving set. So I'm going to try to chisel out the rest of that. Well, let's see if we're on the right track at least. It's got to go over a little more. Caught it. Caught it. Try again. You know, I said I was going to share the good moments and the bad moments, and that one was kind of stupid. I was just trying to, hold it. I went a little too far, so I just let it go. I guess the best way really would be to get the table saw out. Okay, so I don't remember if the table saw trips the breaker. I'm thinking maybe it was the radial arm saw that I was using before, which is over on the side here. So let me kick this on and see if the breaker actually trips or not. If it doesn't, then we'll try to do this half flap joint. Turn this on. Didn't trip the breaker, so we're going to try it. So this is an old table saw. Okay, we had to redo this fence out of wood. Just have those miter gauges. This is a Craftsman. I don't know where that one came from. But there's no safety features that came on it. Well, maybe it did. This was inherited from my father. It was in his basement, so I don't know if anything really came with it. I do believe it's an older one because this doesn't pop off very easily. So we're just going to be careful, just like I was careful over here, but I went too deep or too far to the side and it caught it and it pulled it. But I'm going to attempt to do, right, we want to set the blade to go halfway up. Just like on the other saw, on the miter saw, we don't want to go all the way through. We just want to come halfway up. So I'm going to set this blade to go up to the line here. And then we're going to use the miter. We're just going to take cuts slide it, take a cut, slide it, take a cut, until we dado out or carve out that spot. Just about halfway. It's kind of hard to do on the side here. Just a smidget above the line. We're not going to use the fence. We're just going to move that out of the way, lock it. And we're just going to keep our hands here, slide it, come back, move it over, slide it again, until we carve out this section here. So again, I'm going to try to take a cut on this side and a cut on this side, and then just go in between to hollow it out. And that is just about on the line. I'm going to raise the blade just a little bit. Yeah, that is like exactly on the line. Let me move it over to this side, cutting just on the inside of the line. That actually works a lot better than that. And that's really the proper way to do it, I guess. Even more proper would be if I had a safer crosscut sled, which will be on my list of things to build once I get some more materials. So let's test this out. Yeah, it's got to go a little bit wider. See, I stayed in between the lines. So I got a little bit here I can cut off. I took a couple extra passes there. So that's it's perfect. All right, so now we got to do the same thing to this other piece. And I'm just going to, since I screwed up the other one, I'm going to mark this out according to that one, and then we'll cut it. See, so at the moment, it doesn't matter if we do these exactly the same. I probably could have taken them both at the same time, now that I think of it. But that's something that you probably want to do with a better, like a crosscut sled. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Line up my first cut just on the inside of the line. I got both my pieces cut, and you really want to have like a snug fit here. I maybe went a half of a blade width too far. So it's not like super snug. It's a little loose, but what I'll do is I'll put some glue in there. Well, I was going to glue it anyway. And then just maybe on the bottom, I'll stick a brad nail in there or something to help stabilize it. But other than that, for the first time doing the half lap for the plant sand like that, I think I did pretty good. So now we need to connect this together. We're going to secure these two pieces together with some wood glue. Like I said, I'll stick a brad nail in the bottom. It's not going to be holding a ton of weight, so the wood glue would probably be fine. So we're going to secure this, and then I think we'll just go 3/4 of the way up on the legs, or maybe a little bit over half, right? So we have something like this. It's not going to be that wide. I'm going to only make this about 6 inches wide. So once I get these together, I'll measure out. And so I could kind of dado out this side and then kind of have it in like that, kind of like these, right? So just kind of dado that out, put it in there, glue it, and maybe stick a brad nail on the side. So first thing to do is I'm going to put this together with some wood glue and a brad nail or two on the bottom, just to make sure it's stable, because you know, a little too much, too loose. You can see it right there. So let me get to, and they're pretty flat, so I don't need to really sand it or chisel it out. Maybe I'll just run the sandpaper over that. And then I'll just kind of run the sandpaper over this a little bit, get all my pencil marks off. You know, I guess, you know, I don't have my own shop, but I'm lucky enough to kind of take over my family's garage here and do what I need to do. And again, I don't think there's ever been a car in this garage since my parents have been here. And when I was a kid, we didn't even have a car in here. It's always been a shop. I got a 3/4 inch brad nail and some Type Bond 3. So like I said, we're gonna glue this together. And then we'll put a couple of brad nails in just to make sure it's stable. Put this over here, and then I'll stick just a clamp on it. Probably just this guy. Should be enough pressure to hold it. And the brad nail is going to act like a clamp anyway. So I took the sandpaper and ran it across, got all my pencil marks off, just smooth it all out just a little bit. Like I said, it's already smooth. All right, so we're going to just glue that together like so. Put a little bit on both sides. I'll put it on the edges too, just even though there's a little bit of a gap, and it probably won't do all that much. So we'll flip this over here. And we'll kind of clamp that down. Well, not clamp it yet. We'll stick a couple brad nails in it. I'll just put one on each corner here. Okay. And then we'll flip it over and realize that the brad nails came through the other side. Those were the smallest brad nails I had. So maybe this is now the bottom and that is the top. They went in too far. Again, this is not a professional channel. I'm learning this as I record it. We have plenty of pieces. Could do it all over again, but let me just kind of make this the bottom. Let's see. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can just pull this apart. And we'll try to take these brad nails out bar, because a 1/4 inch should be fine. It's just I had too much power on the saw, not the saw, the nail gun. So I'll try to minimize the excess holes, but let's try this again. And I'll have to sand the bottom where they came out. But again, this is a prototype, right? I'm not going to be selling this at the market or anything. This is a learning experience, and if I get it figured out, then I can batch these out and have them for sale online or for the yard sale coming up. Glue. I'm going to put a little bit more glue back in. And first, let's tone down this nail gun. Nails this time. But let me put this together. Put this together anyway. Let the glue sink into that. All right, so I took a little break and let this glue dry a bit. So it's on there pretty good. I think I'm going to try the 3/4 inch brad nail again. But I'm going to go in at an angle. Just because I want to at least have one in there. I think I could probably do two. I'm going to do it at an angle so they go in diagonally and not come out the other end. If they do come out the other end, we'll just do this over. We got plenty of spare pieces. Again, this is the first time I've made one of these, and you know, we're all learning together here. Trying to stay close to the same hole, but I put 2 more holes in it. Again, that's going to be the bottom. Here's the top. What I'll do is I'll just sand out these 2 spots here from where the nails came up through. I'll put a little wood glue and some sawdust in there to try to fill the hole. Kind of like making your own filler, making your own putty, I guess. All right, so I got a little bit of sawdust here from, I think the other day when I was sanding something, same color, not the brown sawdust. And my wood glue is here. I'm just going to take a little stick. There's my glue in there. Just kind of mix it together. Turns into like a little putty. Now once I put this on, I'm going to have to sand it. You know, it's going to make a little bit of a mess, but we're just going to fill that hole a little bit. Now, we need to figure out what to do with the legs. Should we cut a groove Same way we did the half flaps. Do a dado halfway through, put this in and glue it. And then maybe a brad nail in the end. I think that's what we'll do. And that looks like a pretty good height. So let me measure this. How far down do we want to go? So I'm thinking maybe 3 inches up. So pull down 3 inches. Let me make a mark and then we'll see what it looks like. So 3 inches there. And we'll put the top of this board at the 3 inch. And again, we're going to cut this board, this cross member here, to 6 inches each way. Maybe 6.5, just in case. Again, this is, practice. We're learning at the same time. Although some of you watching may already know. But either way, thanks for watching. Let's use this to square them up here. So I'm going to mark 3 inches. I think this one is fine here. Yeah, so 3 inches. I'm going to take that line across all four. Now, sometimes I just look lost, right? It's because I couldn't find the tool. So we're going to take that 3 inch line. Carry it across all four legs. And since we're putting the end of the boards in, we want it to be 3/4 inch thick. So we want it to be the same all the way across. So I'm going to mark this one and put this right on the line that we just made. And we'll mark the other side of it. And then we'll carry this across. All right, then just like the half flaps, we only want to go halfway through the board. So this is still set, should be still set to halfway. So if we do that mark and then we flip it around, mark it again, it should be the same, and it is. So I'm going to darken that up with the pencil. Probably should do it where it needs to be. Well, let's carry these lines over. So once we mark the one, so we've got the lines carried to the side. So I've got the halfway mark here. So I'm going to raise the blade so that it just gets to that halfway mark, just like we did on the crossbar. So this is our center tooth here on the blade. So we're going to use that one because that one's going to be the highest. And we're going to bring this up to just about at the line. a little bit more. Like that. All right, we'll try that. Again, we'll use the miter gauge here. And we'll bring this to just on the inside of the first line. And again, we'll make one cut on one side, and then we'll cut on the other side, and then we'll cut the in between. And we'll just kind of creep up on the two lines, and we'll test the board out as we go. Plug it in. Plug it in, it works better. Okay. Doesn't look half bad. Let's see how it fits. Fits perfect. It's a little loose. So maybe on the other ones we'll just go a little bit less. So we're looking at something like that. So we got to do that 3 more times. Just make the next 3 a little bit smaller. I did all 4 of the legs. And it's a good thing they all look the same. I sanded down the legs a little bit, got rid of all the pencil markings. And I sanded this down. So I think that sawdust had some of the brown sawdust in it. So it doesn't look that bad. It's still a little wet. I'm going to let it just dry. But in the meantime, we can cut our lengths. Right, so we want 6.5 inches. I mean, they're 12 exactly. So 6 is dead on center. So I want to go 3 1/4 on each side. So you got 1, 2, 3 1/4. Where are we? 1, 2, 3 1/4. So that puts us at 9 1/4 over here. And then we go 3 1/4 from the other side. So 1, 2, 3 1/4 puts us at 2 1/4 on this side. Well, 2 3/4 on this side, but that ends up being 1/4. So that if I measure those 2 dots, it puts us at right 6.5. Just checking the video, and sorry for the bad camera angles. Anyway, this is what we want it to be at. So we're 6.5 that way, and 6.5 that way. So now if we bring the table over here, put the blade away. All right, so one thing I can tell you that I missed right now is I made the cross members 6.5 inches, but I didn't take into account the 1/4 inch or so for where it sits inside the legs. So the inside is going to be like 5 3/4, which will still work for the couple of pots at home. I can show you this side. So what we'll do is we'll glue all these up, get them in there. It's all crusted over here. I'm gonna put some glue in here. Use your fancy glue spreader. I'm gonna get the edges. I'm gonna put a little bit on the end here. And since this is the end grain here, that's gonna soak up a lot of the glue, so you wanna make sure you get that covered. Like so. I won't say you could never have enough glue, but you can and can't at the same time. But I do want to put a brad nail in. And so I'm going to turn this. Make sure it is centered. So just make sure it's flush before you go putting the nails in. The nail in. Alright, so I'm gonna just let this dry up and we'll come back, see what it looks like. I think that came out pretty good for the first time. I had a couple of mistakes, but you know, that's why we do this, practice to learn. So let me get this cleaned up. I'll put some shellac on it and we'll see how the final results. This is the plant sand we were making. So I gave it another decent sanding. Then I just sprayed it down with this bullseye shellac clear coat. Made it look really nice. So that's the end of that story there. We learned a little bit of what to do and what not to do. So let's recap, shall we? So since this was a brand new project to me, I'd never made one of these before. I kind of just had like a general idea of how it went together. So that's what I worked with. And so lessons learned here is, yes, you can probably do the half lap on the miter saw, but the table saw would be a lot quicker and easier, especially if you have a nice crosscut sled, which is on my list of things to build. So over here at the miter saw, you know, I was doing pretty good, and it does leave a little bit of a curvature, but then I went just a little too far over, and the blade caught it and took it out of my hand, and that was that. That's why we practice, and that's why we do things to learn. Anyway, on the dados and the half lap, even on the table saw, I went just a millimeter or two too much, too wide, leaving a little bit of a gap on the dados and on the half lap in the middle. I did try to fill it in with a little bit of sawdust and wood glue, but there was a little bit of brown sawdust mixed in there, so it is a little bit brown. This is not going to be one that's for sale. This is one we're going to keep in the house. So I just finished putting just a coat of shellac on it, spray shellac, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a sanding and maybe put another coat on, and then that's good to go. So we did learn some lessons, and we're going to use those in the next build. I'm going to build another one today, hopefully maybe 2 more, now that I kind of know what I'm doing, and I want to shrink those dados and the half laps just probably by like 1/8 of an inch, so they're nice and snug when they fit together, and I don't have to go ahead and use brad nails and glue to get them where they need to be. If I make them a little bit tighter and then just use wood glue, they'll be perfectly fine. They're not going to hold a ton of weight, and even at that, I can put 50, 60 pounds of pressure on here, and it's not coming apart. But anyway, they're not supposed to hold a lot of weight anyway. It's a plant stand. It's not a big plant. So I'll put up a couple of still images while I'm talking here, so you can see what it looks like back at the house with the plants in it. So let me get this sanded a little bit. We'll put a final coat on, and then we're done.